The world stood at a precipice, its people unaware that the coming storm would reshape the destiny of humankind. In the aftermath of the First World War, that war to end all wars, the nations of Earth clung desperately to the fragile promise of peace. Yet beneath the surface, the old wounds festered. Borders had been redrawn, empires dismantled, economies shattered, and the psyche of millions scarred beyond recognition. The victors stood triumphant, but hollow. The vanquished, humiliated, seethed with resentment. From the ashes of the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, new nations emerged, fragile, unsteady, and yearning for identity. Meanwhile, in Germany, the Treaty of Versailles had imposed a burden so heavy that it crushed the nation's pride beneath its weight. Reparations, disarmament, and guilt, these words would haunt a generation. But within that humiliation, a spark of fury began to smolder. The 1920s gave birth to an age of illusion. The world danced to the rhythm of jazz, industrial innovation, and newfound freedoms. But beneath the glittering surface of modernity, cracks spread like lightning across the sky. The Great Depression struck in 1929, bringing economies to their knees. Factories closed, families starved, the social order began to crumble. And when despair grips the hearts of millions, the promise of strong leadership, of national rebirth, becomes a siren's call too powerful to resist. In Italy, Benito Mussolini had already risen to power, draped in the banners of Roman glory. He preached discipline, order, and empire, a resurrection of past grandeur. In Germany, a failed artist and bitter veteran of the trenches, Adolf Hitler, seized the same narrative. The Führer promised not only revenge for Versailles, but a new world, one forged in the image of racial purity and absolute obedience. By 1933, democracy in Germany was dead. The Nazi Party, through a blend of propaganda, fear, and orchestrated chaos, had transformed a nation of thinkers, engineers, and dreamers into the engine of a dark ideology. As Hitler's voice echoed through the halls of the Reichstag, the world watched, some with alarm, others with apathy. In the East, another power stirred. Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union, born from the ashes of revolution and civil war, had become an industrial and military colossus ruled by terror. And in the distant islands of Japan, the rising sun sought dominion over Asia, its imperial ambitions cloaked in nationalism and divined destiny. The stage was set. The world's fragile peace stood upon trembling ground. In 1936, Hitler reoccupied the Rhineland, a direct violation of Versailles. The response from Britain and France was silence. Appeasement was the order of the day, as leaders like Neville Chamberlain sought to buy peace with diplomacy and hope. Yet every concession fed the beast further. That same year, the Spanish Civil War erupted, a brutal preview of the global conflict to come. In the skies over Guernica, German bombers tested their new tactics of blitzkrieg lightning war as the world turned its gaze away. By 1938, the Anschluss had come. Austria was absorbed into the Reich, greeted by cheering crowds and Nazi banners that unfurled like blood-red waves. Soon after, Hitler's gaze turned toward the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. Once again, the world hesitated. The Munich Agreement, hailed as peace for our time, handed Hitler his prize without a shot fired. Winston Churchill warned that appeasement would lead only to greater catastrophe, but his words fell on weary ears. Then came 1939. Germany's pact with the Soviet Union stunned the world. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Agreement, a cynical arrangement that divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. On September 1st, German forces crossed the Polish border. The Blitzkrieg had begun. In a matter of weeks, Poland was carved apart by the twin predators, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Britain and France declared war, but their forces stood idle behind the Maginot Line, watching as darkness consumed the East. The following spring, the Nazi war machine roared to life once more. Denmark and Norway fell in swift succession. Then came the invasion of France, a campaign so rapid, so devastating, that the world reeled. The Wehrmacht bypassed the Maginot Line through the Ardennes forest, cutting through the heart of Europe like a blade. In 6 weeks, France, the proud victor of the First World War, collapsed. Paris fell, and Hitler stood triumphant beneath the Eiffel Tower. Britain now stood alone. Across the English Channel, the Battle of Britain began. In the summer of 1940, the skies over London were set ablaze. The Luftwaffe sought to crush the Royal Air Force, to prepare the way for invasion. But the RAF, outnumbered and outgunned, held the line. Churchill's defiant words echoed through the airwaves. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. As the bombs rained down upon London in the Blitz, a new kind of war emerged. One fought not just on battlefields, but in the hearts of civilians. Children were evacuated. Cities burned. Yet the British spirit refused to break. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, Mussolini's ambitions faltered. His campaigns in North Africa and Greece stumbled, forcing Hitler to divert precious resources to rescue his ally. In the East, the Fuhrer began to eye his ultimate prize, the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history, was launched in June 1941. Over 3 million German soldiers crossed the border, sweeping across vast plains toward Moscow. The Soviet forces, caught by surprise, retreated and burned their own lands behind them, a scorched earth of sacrifice and defiance. But the German advance slowed. The Russian winter arrived, fierce and unforgiving. At Moscow and later at Stalingrad, the tides began to turn. In the rubble of that city, on the Volga, German divisions were encircled and annihilated. The myth of Nazi invincibility was shattered amid the snow and blood of the Eastern Front. Yet, as Europe burned, another inferno erupted across the Pacific. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft descended upon Pearl Harbor. The attack crippled the American Pacific Fleet and shocked a nation that had long remained neutral. A date which will live in infamy, declared President Franklin D. Roosevelt as the United States entered the war. Now it was truly a world conflict. The Pacific War raged from the jungles of Burma to the coral atolls of the South Seas. The Japanese Empire, disciplined and ruthless, sought domination across Asia. But the United States, awakened and united, began a long and brutal campaign of island hopping, from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, each step purchased with unimaginable sacrifice. In North Africa, Allied forces under Montgomery and Eisenhower began to push back the Axis tide. The deserts that once echoed with Rommel's victories now bore witness to his defeat. By 1943, Italy had fallen. Mussolini was overthrown, and the Allies turned their eyes to Europe's heart. June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy under relentless fire. The cost was immense, the courage beyond measure. and from those bloody shores the march toward Berlin began. The snows of the Eastern Front melted into rivers of blood as the Red Army surged westward. Stalingrad had broken the German army's illusion of supremacy. Kursk had crushed its spine. Now, in 1944, Soviet forces thundered across Ukraine and Poland, reclaiming cities that had been buried under the iron heel of occupation. Entire divisions moved like living machines, tanks, artillery, and infantry advancing in waves that seemed to stretch beyond the horizon. In their wake, they found only ruins and the silent ghosts of extermination as the Allies pressed from the west and the Soviets from the east. Hitler's empire began to crumble. The man who had once commanded millions now hid beneath the ruins of his own creation. Yet in his bunker beneath Berlin, he still dreamed of vengeance, still demanded total war, still ordered the sacrifice of a nation for his delusions of grandeur. By early 1945, the war's outcome was clear, but its horror had not yet reached its climax. The Allies liberated France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, their forces pushing steadily toward the Rhine. In the Ardennes, the Germans launched one final counteroffensive, the Battle of the Bulge, a desperate gamble that sought to split the Allied armies. For weeks, the forests of Belgium were engulfed in chaos, snow, and fire. But when the smoke cleared, the last German offensive had failed. The Reich was finished. Meanwhile, in the east, the Red Army unleashed Operation Begression, an unstoppable assault that shattered German lines and swept through Eastern Europe. By April, Soviet troops had encircled Berlin. The once mighty capital of the Reich was now a wasteland of rubble, its people starving, its leaders delusional. Hitler, refusing to surrender, chose to end his life in the shadows of his bunker, leaving behind nothing but ashes and ruin. On May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day, the guns finally fell silent. But even as Europe celebrated, the war was far from over. Across the Pacific, the Empire of Japan still fought with a ferocity that defied reason. Each island, each stretch of ocean was a blood-soaked battleground. American bombers turned Japanese cities into infernos. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, all burned beneath storms of fire. Yet Japan refused to yield. Then, in August 1945, the world crossed a threshold from which it would never return. At 8:15 a.m. on August 6th, a single bomb fell upon Hiroshima. In an instant, the city vanished in a blinding flash of light. 80,000 souls erased. 3 days later, Nagasaki followed. The atomic age had begun. Emperor Hirohito, faced with annihilation, surrendered. On September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri, Japan signed its capitulation. World War II, the most devastating conflict in human history, was finally over, but the cost defied comprehension. Over 70 million lives lost, cities reduced to ash, nations scarred for generations. The Holocaust had revealed humanity's darkest abyss, the mechanized extermination of 6 million Jews, along with countless others deemed unworthy by the Nazi regime. In the Nuremberg trials that followed, the world tried to define justice in the face of unimaginable evil. For the first time in history, leaders were held accountable for crimes against humanity. The war's aftermath redrew the map of the world. Europe lay divided, the West under the shield of American influence, the East under the iron grip of the Soviet Union. The old empires, British, French, Dutch, began to crumble, giving birth to new nations seeking self-determination. Colonialism's end had begun. In 1949, Germany was split in two, the Federal Republic in the west, the German Democratic Republic in the east. In the heart of Berlin, a wall would one day rise, the scar of a new conflict, not fought with bullets, but with ideology. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers locked in a rivalry that would define the next half-century. The Cold War had begun, an age of nuclear fear, espionage, and proxy wars. But amid the tension, the world sought healing. The United Nations was born in 1945, an imperfect yet hopeful attempt to prevent another global catastrophe. Across the globe, economies rebuilt. In Japan, cities rose from ashes into towers of steel and glass. In Europe, the Marshall Plan restored hope where despair had taken root. And in the hearts of survivors, a quiet vow took shape: never again. Yet the lessons of war, though etched in history, would be tested again and again in Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, and beyond. World War II had not ended conflict. It had merely transformed it. But it had also sparked revolutions in science, technology, and human rights. The horrors of genocide gave birth to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The race for power ignited the space age. Out of ruin, humanity sought redemption. Today, the echoes of that war still shape our world, in alliances, in borders, in the fragile balance of peace. From the beaches of Normandy to the ruins of Stalingrad, from the forests of Poland to the islands of the Pacific, the ghosts of World War II whisper their warning that hatred left unchecked consumes all, that freedom demands vigilance, that peace, though fragile, is worth every sacrifice. And so the world remembers not merely the battles, but the people, the soldier in the trench, the mother in the rubble, the child beneath the siren's wail. For theirs is the true story of World War II, the story of endurance, of suffering, and of hope reborn. Humanity emerged from that darkness changed forever, wiser, scarred, yet unbroken. And though the guns fell silent in 1945, the lessons of that war still call to us, urging remembrance, humility, and resolve. Because history, if forgotten, always returns. And the greatest war humanity ever fought must remain not only a memory, but a warning